So I've gotten, I'm pretty sure, over 45 books into the Goosebumps series, and I've pretty much figured out that Stein has an incredible wide range when it comes to different types of books that you get to read. Not just in the concepts and the characters and also the storylines, but you also get the sense of basically you can either have really good stories that you'd figure would never be able to make it into a kid's novel, whether it had extreme levels of gore, extreme levels of dark tones, sinister tones, or even well written characters where they feel very human. You relate to them, and you kind of get these coming of age stories, which overall make you think that the story stands out. And even by reading stories like The Ghost Next Door or that one moment in My Evil Twin, I basically got the sense that Stein can even write emotion really well. So right now I'm going to be doing the best Goosebumps books that I have read so far and basically talk about them, give my thoughts about them because I think that these stories stand out and I think that they do deserve more spotlight than the others because when you read Goosebumps, unfortunately, you will get a big portion of mid books where they're good, decent, fun, but sort of formulaic. And you also get bad books. You get really, really bad books. Ones that you never want to read again, ones that you never want to touch again. So this video, I'm going to be talking about the books that you do want to touch again. Pause. And kind of talk about why they're so important, why they stand out from the rest of the crowd, and why they sort of matter in the overall grand run. So the first book that I like to talk about as being one of the best Goosebumps books that I've read so far is Go Eat Worms. Now, Go Eat Worms basically kind of broke the normality and the formulaic tones of these books because it deals with a bully protagonist. Now, a lot of the time when you read these Goosebumps books, you expect sympathetic protagonists that actually have material to them and they actually have interesting personalities and they're actually worth something. But in the case of Go Eat Worms, the main character has none of those things. And it sort of breaks the norm that you're used to. It gives you this insight that, this is the potential of Stein's writing, where you don't always need to be flashy with werewolves or vampires. You don't need moral dilemmas within characters. You don't really even need good jump scares or body horror. Sometimes if you take something as terrible as a concept of a kid liking worms and having to deal with worms, it sort of makes the book unique. And I think that it's worth reading at that point because in case you wanted to read something that was actually well written, you could read this book and realize that it doesn't take good writing to sell a lot of books. And I think that this book kind of does a good job at standing out from the other Goosebumps books because when you read this, you get to see Todd bully other characters. You don't see that in other Goosebumps books. You get to see amazing villains because the villains in this book is the worms, and they have a lot of potential because they're basic worms that dig through the dirt and kind of poop out dirt and do that stuff, which is really interesting. The fact that they behave just like regular worms makes them pretty much a good villain in my eyes. I mean, they sort of stand out. They're gross, they're wriggly, they're not smart. So pretty much all you want in a Goosebumps villain, if you had to ask me. And the climax of the book is ridiculous, which helps you kind of more realize that Stein's writing, he can write exaggerated scenes. He's not limited to needing to write, realistic or scary scenes. No, he can write ridiculous stuff that makes no sense. And it shows his versatility as an author. And the twist ending is very childish. And I respect that because it's a children's book. So when Stein writes something very childish that rots away your brain, it shows that he cares about the children that are reading the book. And he obviously cares about his writing. He cares about the book being cohesive. He cares about a storyline that actually matters. And by none of that stuff being in Go Eat Worms, he's showing his potential as a writer because he's throwing you for a red herring. He's throwing you for a loop. He's making you realize that not everything is as it seems. Don't expect formulaic stuff out of him because he may throw you for a loop and he may give you a book that has none of the things that you're looking for, and in reality that's what makes it what you're looking for. So that's the first book that's on my list. The second book that I like to talk about its potential in terms of being probably one of the best books that I've read so far is The Barking Ghost. The Barking Ghost essentially clickbaits you with the cover. But again, this is for a red herring. It's sort of throwing you for a loop It's inviting you in, but he's showing you a different story. So the characters in Barking Ghost are pretty much unbearable. And this is done purposefully because he wants you to realize that not all characters should be good, right? This is a horror book. So not all characters should be likable. Not all characters should be ones that you look forward to and you remember. But sometimes they have to be different. And being different sometimes means they have to be bad characters. They have to be annoying. They have to have not a lot of substance. They have to be whiny all the time because it's realistic to the real world. There are whiny people. There are people that are bad. There are people that have no substance. And that matches in real life. We're not always going to meet people that we're always interested in. Now you may be thinking, well, I paid money for this book. I want interesting characters. But in reality, sometimes life is not fair. You will pay money and get something that you didn't want. But it serves as a learning experience, and I think that's what this book's characters serve. They are a learning experience for the better characters in the Goosebumps series, and honestly that shows that they're foundational to the series itself. Throughout all 62 books, Barking Ghost is a foundational book that helps it out tremendously. I mean, I don't think OG62 would be here, and I don't think Goosebumps would have the success it has today without Go Eat Worms and the Barking Ghost. These books really stand out. And the storyline for Barking Ghost, you think it goes somewhere and it doesn't go anywhere. And in fact, the ending is very stupid. This in turn reflects sort of the moral struggle that we have in life where we have expectations for ourselves and they don't always get met, right? We will meet obstacles in the road. We have to get past those obstacles. And at the end of the day, we may even be disappointed with ourselves. But that's just a part of life. You can't change that. You can't turn that around. You just sort of have to accept that as reality. And you'll accept that reality as you read this book. So probably makes it one of the best ones I've read so far. And it definitely changed my perspective and it changed my mind. And finally, the third book that I want to give credit to is Monster Blood 2. Now, Monster Blood 2, I think is probably the best sequel that I've read so far in Goosebumps. Out of the 45 books I've read, right? Out of the 45 books I've read so far, this one is the best sequel that I've read so far. I've read the Night of the Living Dummy sequels. I read Night of the Living Dummy 2, but Night of the Living Dummy 2 wasn't that good of a sequel to Night of the Living Dummy 1, right? All it did was make Night of the Living Dummy 1 looked bad because Night of the Living Dummy 2 ended up having good writing and good character progression and a good, climax, a great twist. So it had too many great things in it. And that's not really that good. That's not realistic to life. But in the case of Monster Blood 1, Monster Blood 1 was a slow burn. And at the end, it kind of got rushed for page constraints. So you're just like, all right, pretty good story, but it kind of flopped in the ending. But Monster Blood 2, I think, is the perfect sequel because it flops all over, right? The pacing is all over the place, so you don't feel like you are being in a slow burn. Instead, it goes all over the place with no real direction or plot. Evan actually evolves as a character because he ends up from being a little bit annoying to very annoying and very unlikable, which shows that he thought that his, it sort of shows that Stein thought his approach in Monster Blood 1 was too tame. And in Monster Blood 2, it kind of highlights on what he wanted to do the whole time. He wanted to reveal to you how annoying Evan was. And even with Andy loses all of her sense of logic for Monster Blood 1, and she ends up becoming absolutely stupid in Monster Blood 2. This is what Stein had in plan the whole time, but we just couldn't see it. There were hints of it in Monster Blood 1, but he's fully exploring it within this book, right? So that's what I appreciate about this sequel. Also, you have the fact that you have a new villain, Cuddles, and compared to the main villain in Monster Blood 1, who actually had like a threatening powers to them, and they had some influence in what the Monster Blood was, Cuddles is just a hamster. And that to me shows, again, Stein's variety because he makes a hamster into a villain. And who really does that, right? Like that shows you're a great writer when you can take a random animal and make it into a temporary villain that would eventually become the mascot, not because of forced promotion, but because the villain is that good in the long run. And the climax is extremely goofy, which is perfect. I think for a horror book, there should always be goofy moments in it. A horror book doesn't really need a horror in it. I don't know why people think that scary books need to be scary. That's sort of a misinterpretation we've had across society. Goofy books are more so what the fans want and what the fans need. Obviously, if you wanted a scary book, you could go to like a comedy store and find it. When it comes to scary books, I want goofy antics, I want shenanigans, I want fun, and in turn, that's what you get with Monster Blood 2. And I think that range of Stein's writing, in tandem with The Barking Ghost, in tandem with Go Eat Worms, it does amazing things for the Goosebumps series. And honestly, I'm looking forward to what else comes in Goosebumps. And yeah, I mean, stay tuned for some more of my reviews. Stay tuned for some more ranking videos. But I think that these are 3 books you guys should definitely consider as some of the best Goosebumps books of all time. And yeah, that's all I have for today. Deuces. And by the way, make sure to check your calendars today. Take care.